What if I told you that a single event in 1939 changed the course of human history forever? A spark ignited that would engulf the world in flames, a war like no other, World War II. Let's rewind a bit to a time when political tensions were simmering, a fragile peace hanging by a thread. The world stage was divided with key players on either side. Germany, Italy, Japan, forming the Axis powers, and their opposition, the Allies, consisting of Britain, France, and eventually many others. Germany, under the iron grip of Adolf Hitler, was expanding its borders with an insatiable hunger for power. Italy, led by Benito Mussolini, shared this expansionist dream. Japan, meanwhile, was eyeing territories in the east. On the other side of the fence, Britain and France were watching these aggressive maneuvers with growing concern. Then, on a fateful day in September 1939, Germany invaded Poland. This was not just a territorial conquest, but a blatant display of power, a challenge to the world. Poland, a sovereign nation, was trampled under the jackboots of the German army. This act of aggression was the final straw. It shattered the illusion of peace and pushed the world to the brink of war. Britain and France couldn't stand by and watch any longer. They had signed a pact with Poland, promising to come to its aid if it was attacked. True to their word, they declared war on Germany. It was a decision that was both necessary and terrifying. It meant the end of diplomacy and negotiations. It meant the start of a war that would span continents and oceans, a war that would affect millions of lives. This was no ordinary conflict. It was a struggle for freedom, for justice, for the very survival of nations. It was a test of courage, of resilience, of the human spirit. And thus, in September 1939, the world was plunged into the deadliest conflict in human history. With the world at war, the Axis powers began their ruthless expansion. The Axis powers, a tripartite pact of Germany, Italy and Japan, embarked on a relentless march across continents, fueled by a dangerous cocktail of ambition, ideology and raw power. In Europe, the German war machine was in full swing. Blitzkrieg, a strategy of rapid, concentrated attack, was a terrifyingly effective tool in their arsenal. In less than 2 months, they had invaded and occupied France, a shocking defeat that sent tremors across the free world. The Nazis' rapid advance was not limited to Western Europe. They pushed eastwards too, annexing Austria and Czechoslovakia and launching a brutal invasion of Poland. Meanwhile, in Asia, Japan was carving out a formidable empire of its own. The land of the rising sun was setting its sights on the vast territories of China and Southeast Asia. Their unprovoked attack on the American naval base at Pearl Harbor in December 1941 marked a significant escalation in the war, drawing the United States into the global conflict. Italy, under the charismatic but ruthless leadership of Benito Mussolini, had its own imperial ambitions. The Mediterranean and North Africa became the theatre of their expansion, with Ethiopia and Libya falling under their control. The Axis powers were not just expanding territorially, they were also imposing their ideologies and systems of governance on the territories they occupied. From the concentration camps in Germany to the comfort women in Japan, their rule was marked by a chilling disregard for human rights and dignity. The world watched in horror as these forces of aggression swept across nations and continents. Yet in the face of this terrifying onslaught, the Allies were far from defeated. They were regrouping, strategizing, and preparing to strike back. The spirit of resistance was kindling, ready to burst into flame. The Axis powers seemed unstoppable, but the Allies were preparing to fight back. The stage was set for a conflict that would determine the fate of the world. A struggle between the forces of freedom and the shadows of tyranny. When do you think the tide of war began to turn against the Axis powers? It's a question that many history enthusiasts ponder. The answer lies in a series of pivotal events that marked the beginning of the end for the Axis powers. The Battle of Stalingrad is often considered one of the first major turning points of World War II. The city of Stalingrad, named after Soviet leader Joseph Stalin, was a crucial target for Adolf Hitler. Its capture would have secured the oil fields of the Caucasus and dealt a severe blow to Soviet morale. However, the brutal urban warfare and the harsh Russian winter took a dire toll on the German army. After 5 months of fierce fighting, the German Sixth Army surrendered in February 1943, marking the first major defeat of Hitler's forces. Yet the tide didn't turn solely on the Eastern Front. Thousands of miles away, in the Pacific Ocean, the Battle of Midway unfolded. Here, the United States Navy decisively defeated an attacking fleet of the Imperial Japanese Navy in June 1942. This victory halted Japanese expansion in the Pacific and marked a significant shift in momentum. It was the first major defeat for Japan's previously unbeaten navy in almost 300 years. Meanwhile, in Europe, the Allied invasion of Italy in September 1943 further weakened the Axis powers. Italy, once a member of the Axis powers, had its government overthrown and promptly signed an armistice with the Allies. This event not only marked the downfall of fascist rule in Italy, but also opened a new front against Germany, stretching their forces even thinner. These events, occurring across different continents and involving different nations, collectively signaled a shift in the course of the war. The Axis powers began to lose their grip, the momentum was shifting, the tides were turning. But as history reminds us, the Axis powers were on the back foot, but the deadliest chapter of the war was yet to come. The end was near, but at what cost? As the final stages of the Second World War unfolded, the Allies were making significant strides against the Axis powers. The D-Day invasion, a momentous event that marked the turning point, was a massive undertaking. It was the largest amphibious invasion in history, involving thousands of ships, aircraft and men from several nations. The beaches of Normandy, once tranquil, echoed with the sounds of war as the Allies fought to reclaim Europe. Meanwhile, across the globe, the war in the Pacific was reaching its climax. The dropping of atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki was a decision of unparalleled gravity. The horror unleashed by these weapons of mass destruction was beyond comprehension. Hiroshima, once a bustling city, was reduced to ashes in an instant, and Nagasaki met the same fate 3 days later. The destructive force of these bombs brought an abrupt end to the war in the Pacific, but at an unimaginable human cost. And so, the surrender of Germany and Japan followed. In the spring of 1945, Germany officially surrendered to the Allies, bringing an end to the war in Europe. The German war machine, which once seemed invincible, had been defeated. A few months later, Japan followed suit. The surrender of Japan, formalized aboard the USS Missouri, marked the end of World War II. But even as the world celebrated the end of the war, it was impossible to ignore the devastation it had left in its wake. Cities lay in ruins, millions of lives had been lost, and the survivors were left to pick up the pieces. The end had come. But it had come at an unimaginable cost. The Second World War, a conflict that had engulfed the world for 6 long years, had finally come to an end. It was a time of relief, but also a time of mourning for the countless lives lost. It was a time to rebuild, to heal, and to hope for a better future. In 1945, after 6 years of brutal conflict, World War II finally came to an end. But what was the legacy of the deadliest conflict in human history? As the dust settled on the war-torn landscapes, the world was left to grapple with the aftermath of a conflict that had claimed millions of lives and altered the course of history. The end of World War II marked a new era, one shaped by the echoes of the past and the hopes for a brighter, more peaceful future. In the wake of the devastation, the international community came together to establish the United Nations. Born from the ashes of the League of Nations, this new body was tasked with the monumental duty of maintaining peace and fostering cooperation among nations. It was a beacon of hope in a world that had seen too much darkness. Yet even as the world yearned for peace, the seeds of a new conflict were being sown. The Cold War, a silent but potent struggle between two superpowers, the United States and the Soviet Union, began to take shape. The ideological divide between capitalism and communism, heightened by the tensions of the war, set the stage for decades of political, economic and military standoffs. The impact of World War II extended far beyond the years of the conflict itself. It left an indelible imprint on future generations. It shaped the world we know today, influencing everything from politics and economics to art and culture. The stories of bravery, sacrifice and resilience became a part of our collective consciousness, reminding us of our capacity for both destruction and redemption. The war also spurred advancements in technology, medicine and science, from the development of radar and jet engines to the discovery of antibiotics and atomic energy. The war pushed the boundaries of human knowledge and capability. World War II was a cataclysmic period in our history, a brutal reminder of the depths to which humanity can sink. But it was also a testament to our capacity for resilience, unity and hope. It was a time when the world came together amidst the chaos to strive for a better future. World War II changed the world forever, a reminder of the devastating consequences of conflict and the enduring hope for a peaceful future.